Hi everyone, welcome to my afternoon forecast. This week, the first pair on my watch list is BTC Now, how am I planning to trade BTC this week? Let's find out together whilst we go through BTC chart. So we are going to start our analysis from the monthly time frame. Now, to start our analysis, the first question that we need to ask ourselves is that how is BTC from the monthly time frame explaining itself? Now, this analysis will take very long. Why? Because I'm going to also give additional information to it whilst I also analyze BTC. Now, to start from the monthly time frame, how are we going to describe the chart? Now, let me switch a little bit. There are two ways. Ways to describe the chart. So it's either I describe it in two ways. Some people say three ways, but at the end, we are going to be in the same ways. For example, so it's either you say that the chart is what is trending as far as price and time is concerned, or two, you will say that the chart is what is ranging. Now, when a chart is ranging, it is ranging. But the problem is when a chart is trending, we need to specify the direction of the trend. So it's either for the trending, it's either that you say that the chart is trending to the upside. Now, the behavior or the movement or the price action or any terminology that you are going to describe it, that you're going to use to describe it as far as trending is concerned. So if the chart is heading towards to the upside in the form of a trend, we say that the chart is trending to the upside. Generally, technical analysts say that the market is in an uptrend, or it's either you say that the market is trending to the downside. The direction is down, and then the behavior is trending. So technically, we say that the market is heading to the downside. So it's either you say that the market is ranging, the market is trending to either upside or to the downside. Now, with this explanation, if we are going back to the chart, how can we describe BTC from the monthly time frame? We can only see that BTC from the monthly time frame is heading towards to the upside. If it is heading towards to the downside, we see the market dropping. But at this point, we can see that BTC is heading towards to the upside. Now, the question that we need to ask ourselves after knowing the direction is that if it is heading towards to the upside, what are the criteria that will help us to know whether this uptrend or whether this direction will continuously move to the upside? Now, to know whether this uptrend or to know whether this market will continuously move to the upside, there must be a criteria. How are we going to know the criteria? We first have to know the behavior when the market is moving to the upside. Basically, let me also switch a little bit. Let me use arrow to demonstrate. Basically, if the market is moving to the upside, we know that it doesn't move in a straight line, but rather it moves in a wavy manner. So basically, this is how the market moves. It will use this support to form this resistance. Price will pull back. Now, this support must form either above this previous support or on the same level. Now, the question is, when this support forms, what is the duty of this support? This support has two functionality, and the first functionality is not in order. The first functionality is that it must be able to confirm the trend. How? By breaking this resistance to form the next resistance above, or it must be able to fail to continue this uptrend, by rather change the trend from up to down. How? By forming the next resistance on the same level as previous resistance, pull back to break that support, and then we use that support as resistance to trend. Now, at this point, this support has now then served as a functionality to reverse a trend from up to down. Now, if it is going to form functionality to continue a trend, the same behavior, this support, resistance, we have a pullback. The next duty of this support is to confirm the trend by continuously moving the market to the upside by doing what? By breaking this resistance as a break, pull back to that resistance as support to confirm the trend. So is that same support here which has been able to help the market to move to this level. Is that also same support here, which has now then what allowed the market to fail to continue heading towards to the upside, but rather to the downside by breaking this support, to use that support as resistance to drop. Now it means that basically if the market is heading towards to the upside in a trend, we are expecting every turning point. Now when I say turning point, what I mean is that every support and resistance, if you don't use this terminology, you can also say that every highs and low. If you don't use this terminology, you can also say that high psychological level, low psychological level, or support and or demand and supply. There are a lot of terminologies to describe how the market moves when it's creating every turning point. Let's stick to one: support and resistance. It means that every support which has formed its resistance, the next support must be either above this support or on the same level, and then when it forms, it must be able to continue the trend by breaking this resistance to form the next resistance above, which simply means that every support and resistance must form above each other on the same level. That will help us to know whether the uptrend will continue or not, and that is a criteria for us to know the market heading towards to the upside. So we are going to start our analysis. To start from the monthly time frame, we can describe, or we can perfectly describe the market from the monthly in the form of uptrend. How is that uptrend? Let's find out. Now, if you have been able to know the direction as the first point, the next point is to find out how the direction which is heading towards to the either upside or downside behaving. That means that the two is what is B, which simply means that behavior. You can also say PA, which simply means that price action. You can also use any shortcut to describe the second point. So we are going to find out the price action of which price is using to head toward to the upside. So if we are starting from this support here, we have here as the first support. Now the next support is what is this support, which is above this support, telling us that indeed we are in an uptrend. The next support is also this support here, which is also above this support, telling us that yes, price is still heading towards to the upside. Do we have any support again? No. Now, after knowing all the support, what is the next? The next is to find out the resistance that was formed because of the support. Now, this first support formed this resistance. What happens? There was a pullback to form this support. Now, this support formed this resistance. What happens? There was a pullback. This support has now then formed the next resistance. So now the question that we need to ask ourselves is that if price has been able to form the next resistance above this resistance, what is the current behavior of price? We will come back to the current behavior. But before then, let's find out how price form every support and resistance. Now, basically, if someone is teaching technical analysis, the person is going to demonstrate uptrend in the form of support, resistance, pullback, support, resistance, pullback. Now, after what? After seeing price moving to the upside in a trend like this, the next question that you need to ask yourself is that how did this support form this resistance? The how, you are only seeing it in the form of what? One line. But in reality, price is not going to behave in this manner. Price can what? Sometimes pull back and continue in the form of a trend, drop again, move and then drop and then at the end, we are going to create this resistance before price pullback. This pullback, you're not going to see it in the form of one line. You can see it in the form of a trend before price drop back to form this support and then continue. Now with this behavior, technical analysts describe it in the form of what? Trend within a trend. Now let's go back to the chart. Now to go back to the chart, how did this support form this resistance? We saw that price formed it using what? An impulse move. So it's the same as this line. Now how did price pull back? We can see that price pull back also in a form of impulse move. Why am I saying impulse move? I'm saying impulse move because we don't see any turning point. That is what visible to the what? To the eye. That is why I'm saying what? It is impulse move. You can also use any description to describe that behavior of price. Now, for this support to continue what? The uptrend, how did price use this support to break this resistance to form the next resistance above? We can perfectly see here that this support was able to break this resistance in the form not in an impulse move, but rather in the form of trend again, which is uptrend. How? We have a support forming this resistance, price pullback. This support formed this resistance before price pullback. So from this support to create this resistance, when we add the behavior of price around this area, technically we describe it as what? Trend within a trend. So if you see someone saying, or if you hear someone saying what? Trend within a trend, this is perfect example. A general trend is in an uptrend in that manner. For this support to form the next resistance, it also move in the form of a trend before price pull back to respect this what? Broken resistance in that manner. So this behavior of price, we call it what? Trend within a trend. And it started from this what? Resistance to this support all the way to this support. So now there was a trend within a trend from this area. What happens? Price, after using trend within a trend to break this resistance, the next resistance is above this resistance before price pull back. How did price pull back? Also in a trend. How is that trend? Let's find out the trend. So the trend that price used to pull back is that there was initiator, which is what? Double top, price drop here, price from the next resistance here before price drop. So price pull back in the form of what? Downtrend again before price use this broken resistance here as support. What happens? Price managed to break this resistance. How? Also in the form of a trend. So now from this swing low to this swing high, the behavior of price is what? Trend within a trend. Why? So there was an uptrend to break this resistance. There was also an uptrend to break this resistance. So we have a support resistance, we have a pullback, continuation, we have a pullback, continuation, we have a pullback, and then continuation. Now, within this uptrend, that price has used to break the general trend as an uptrend. Now, how is price what behaving at the moment? So now, from BTC our main focus is this what? Current movement of price, of which it is what? Trend within a trend. So if I make things clear here, this is the uptrend starting from support, resistance, pullback. Within this, we have also a trend as an uptrend. And then within this resistance and this support, we have also trend as what? As an uptrend. And that is termed as what? Trend within a trend. So now our focus is only what? This current trend as an uptrend. So within this current trend as an uptrend, where is the last support and then the last resistance? We perfectly see here as what? As our last support, which has now then formed what? The last resistance, which is what? This resistance. So now, if we have been able to see the last support and then the last resistance, how can we describe the current behavior of price? So previously, I said that we will come back to the current behavior of price. So the current behavior of price at the moment is what? It's pullback. So we know that price doesn't move in a straight line. So if price use this support to form this resistance, this turning point, technically, we describe it as what? Pullback. Some people say retest, retracement a lot. Let's stick to pullback. Pullback. So now price is in a pullback phase in monthly time frame. So if price is in a pullback phase in monthly time frame, the next question that we need to ask ourselves is that, are we going to see sellers pushing price back to favor them to this support? If yes, how? If no, how is price going to move again? So at the moment, price is in a pullback. So we are going to focus on what? Looking for sell opportunity back to this support in a lower time frame. So we don't trade in monthly time frame. That is why there is a term called top to down analysis. So price in monthly time frame is in a pullback. How is that pullback explaining itself in other time frames, which is lower than monthly? If we do understand how the lower time frame is explaining the monthly pullback, we can perfectly look for opportunity and then sell price back to this what? Monthly support, because the initiator is what? Monthly pullback. So in monthly time frame, we can only see this pullback only in what? Candlestick behavior. We are not seeing any clear turning point. Let's consult weekly to see how weekly is perfectly what? Describing the monthly pullback. So if we move on to weekly time frame, we can perfectly see weekly what? Pullback representing monthly in the form of what? Now a trend. How did weekly initiated the pullback? Let's switch on to monthly again. So if we move on to monthly, we can see that the turning point here was what? Was only one turning point without any clear what? Definition of price. Just what? Candlestick with wick representing rejection around that price level before price drop. How is that rejection explaining itself in weekly? If we switch on to weekly, weekly is telling us that there was what? Double top. Now, double top is basically simply means that if we are in an uptrend, price formed this resistance, a drop. Price, after pulling back to this resistance for the second time, it has failed to break it and price has seen sell pressure and drop. So we have 2 points here. Technically, we have a term which is what we use to describe this behavior of price as what? Double top, which means that price has failed to break this resistance for the second time. That is why we call it as what? Double top. So if we move back to this one, double top, which initiated the pullback in monthly time frame, price after forming this double top, what happens? There was a break of this weekly support, also weekly support, telling us that at the moment the sellers are enough than the buyers. If the sellers are enough than the buyers, how is price explaining itself? We have a significant drop here, forming this support in weekly, this resistance in weekly here. Now, if the sellers are more than this what the buyers, that means that I'm expecting the next drop again to complete weekly. The question is how. So now in weekly time frame, BTC USD, we have not ended the week yet. But at the moment, I can see that we are going to close with what? With bearish engulfing, which has not then engulfed only one candlestick, but rather multiple candlesticks. What is the meaning of this bearish candlestick in daily time frame or 4 hour? So now at the moment, weekly was what? Was in a pullback phase. And if we close with bearish engulfing, that means that the weekly pullback has what? Has now then ended. We are going to complete what? Or we are going to start weekly continuation to complete monthly support. Let me repeat myself. So in weekly time frame, this is the behavior of price explaining monthly pullback. Price has dropped significantly. We have seen a pullback. So price to continue, we have seen that price has formed what? Bearish engulfing, or price is likely to form bearish engulfing. So the bearish engulfing, which is likely to close, tells us that there is what? Enough sell pressure again, which is going to continue the down trend, or which is going to continuously move price to what? Monthly support. So now if we are going to lower time frame, our aim is to only look for sell opportunity. The question is how. Let's find out from the daily time frame how weekly initiated its pullback. We can only see weekly what? As what? Bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish. In that manner, let's find out what is happening. So around this area. So now when we're in monthly, we're focusing on monthly. In weekly, now we are in weekly. We are going to focus weekly. In daily to look for more sell opportunity to complete monthly. Now here we are in daily time frame. So how is daily explaining weekly pullback? We are going to find out. So this was that weekly pullback that we saw in weekly as what? As bullish, bearish candlestick. Are we seeing the same thing in what? Daily? No, that should tell us that the daily is lower than weekly. So daily is telling us that the bullish, bearish that we saw in weekly is not the same as in daily, but rather in a trend. How is that trend? In an uptrend. We are moving to the downside. If price pull back in a trend, that means that we are going to see that trend as what? As downtrend. Now, previously, price was in a downtrend. This is that downtrend in daily, giving further explanation to weekly and then the monthly pullback. Daily resistance, daily resistance, daily resistance. The last resistance is that resistance here. First resistance formed this support. There was a pullback. The second resistance formed this support, price pullback. This last resistance really dropped price, telling us that at that time there was enough sell pressure to move the market to form this support. So this was that what? Downtrend that previously price was in. And then after this downtrend, price started weekly pullback, also in the form of a trend. And that trend is what? Uptrend. How is that trend started? Starting from this support here, there was a resistance here. Price pullback to form this support. Price has also formed this resistance. We are now in a continuation. The question is, daily is also in a continuation as price to confirm the downtrend. Weekly is what? Now likely to form what? Bearish engulfing. So this is that weekly bearish engulfing, of which price is likely to what? To close in weekly time frame. So if weekly managed to close with the bearish engulfing, that means that when we start on Monday, we are only looking for sell opportunity to where? Today's support to complete monthly support. So let's find out the uptrend. Now, previously, when we were in monthly time frame, we saw price breaking every resistance and every support in what? Trend within a trend that we saw in monthly. You have also seen the same thing in what? In daily. This daily resistance from this daily support, there was only pullback as an impulse move. For price to break this resistance, there was an uptrend. Resistance here, support here, resistance here, support here. Price managed to break this resistance. When price managed to break this resistance, now the sellers are telling us that the direction is not to the upside, but rather to the downside. How? By selling pressure, breaking this support. Now, if price has managed to break this support, how are we expecting? Now, price broke that support with an impulse move. if price has break this impulse move, we're expecting pullback. Price has said what? Pull back to it, and we have seen what? Price forming what? Evening star confirmation at a previous support is telling us that there is what? Enough sell pressure. But the question is, how are we going to join that enough sell pressure to push price back to this monthly support? Let's find out. Now, to move on to any other time frame lower than daily, let's perfectly what? Understand the daily what? Rhythm to what? To weekly, and then the monthly. So this was that uptrend that I said price is in. If you are using trend to track the price behavior, this is that uptrend. Now, price dropping significantly here, resistance, support, and then resistance. Price has managed to break this support. So the question is, are we going to see more sell pressure? Yes, indeed, we are going to see that. Now, to move on to any other time frame, in daily time frame, this was that last resistance in daily. Now, price used to do what? Price has used to break previous daily support, and that support is that here. If price has managed to break this support, let's find out how price is going to move again. Price broke that support, price has pulled back. We are expecting more sell pressure to the downside. Now, that support was not just support. Previously, it was a resistance. You can see that there was what? A resistance here, which was rejecting price. Now, there was enough sellers to break, pull back to it, continue when price was in an uptrend. It's telling us that the direction is not to the upside, but rather to the downside. The sellers has come in strongly to break that support again, pull back to it. We are going to look for more sell opportunity to the downside. So let's find out our entry in 4-hour time frame. So to move on to 4-hour time frame, we have our daily support, daily resistance. How did price manage to break the support? Let's move on to 4-hour. Now this is 4-hour time frame. So how is 4-hour time frame explaining that? So this was that daily strong support, which was previously what? Resistance. So there was a resistance we can see here in 4-hour. Resistance, 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 resistance. It was previously support here, support here. So this area is what? It's a significant area. And in daily time frame, also 4-hour, a 10 support here, telling us that this area is what? It's a respected area. Now, how did price broke this respected area? So price used a downtrend again to break that what? Respected area. And then when price managed to break, it has respect this area again multiple times or 2 times, telling us that the sellers are still strong here. So price, after breaking below here, we are first pulled back to it. There was a rejection. Pull back to it again. We have seen the next rejection. Now, if the sellers are more, this is how we are going to look for what? Sell opportunity. Now, it's either price see buy pressure to come back here for the 3rd time as triple what? Touch or triple top. Then we'll be looking for what? More sell opportunity to the downside. So this is the first what? Setup that I'll be looking for what? Sell pressure to the downside if what? The market presents itself as such, giving me what? First, second, and then third, triple touch, and then the last confirmation will be what? Candle closure. Then I'll be looking for more sell opportunity to the downside. Now, if price doesn't present itself as such, how am I going to still look for sell opportunity? So if price doesn't pull back for the 3rd time, this is how I'm going to look for sell opportunity. Now we have seen this what? Support here in 4-hour. So if price doesn't pull back for the 3rd time, I'm expecting price to use this 2nd time here to break this support, to pull back here, and I'll stay patient for price. Use this support as resistance. I'll be looking for more sell opportunity to the downside. So another way that price can present itself for us to look for sell opportunity is for price to break this one, support completely, pull back to it, then I'll be looking for more sell opportunity to the downside. So this brings us to the end of BTC USD analysis. Peace out.